you ever wondered who actually writes our laws? Not just the ideas, but the precise technical language that makes them legally binding. Well, that's the job of the Office of the Parliamentary Counsel, or the OPC, and it's one of the most important roles in government. Welcome to Lawfully Explained. I'm Nastasia McFarlane, and in today's episode, we'll be taking you inside the OPC, the legislative drafting body that turns government policy into clear, effective legislation. Now today, we'll explore how the OPC works, its role in supporting both the executive and the parliament, and what it takes to draft these laws to make them actually work in practice. Today, joining us is Ms. Judith Grant, the Chief Parliamentary Counsel, who will guide us through the art and science of legislative drafting. CPC, welcome to Lawfully Explained.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So, we want to start off by knowing what is the OPC. Give us the role of the Office of the Parliamentary Counsel, and then how does it fit within Jamaica's legal landscape?
Under the Constitution, our parliamentarians are charged with making laws for the peace, order and good government of Jamaica, but they're not necessarily trained in the process of drafting. So that's where the Office of the Parliamentary Counsel comes in. We're a team of specialist trained lawyers who specialize in legislative drafting. And so we're responsible for translating the policies of the government into law.
Okay, so you said it's a specialized skill set that you guys have at the OPC, right? Now, we understand that legislative drafting is a process, and we know that it trickles down from a policy into legislation. So give us some insight. How does that policy becomes law? What are the steps in the legislative drafting process?
Well, there's a whole process of policy development that occurs before something is ready to come to our office. So normally policies would be developed and settled through a process of consultation. And then once the policy is fairly settled, then the ministry responsible will go to Parliament with a cabinet submission seeking approval for drafting instructions to be issued to our office. And those drafting instructions will clearly articulate the policy that the government wants to translate into legislation. And once the cabinet approves that policy, the cabinet submission, which would specifically request that drafting instructions be issued to the Office of the Parliamentary Counsel, then people in the ministry will sit and write drafting instructions to our office, asking us to write the necessary legislation. So once our office receives the drafting instructions, a drafter will be assigned to draft the matter. That drafter will go through the instructions and write the necessary legislative provisions. If we have any questions, then the drafter will include those questions in a draft that's returned to the ministry. So once we finish the drafting, we'll send the draft back to the ministry for their consideration with any questions we might have. And that back and forth might continue for a while until the provisions are settled. Once the provisions are settled between our office and the ministry, then the ministry will circulate the draft to other stakeholders, including other legal departments like the Legal Reform Department or the Attorney General's chambers for their review, and they will critically review the draft, and we might get further drafting instructions at that stage. Once everybody is satisfied that the draft reflects the policy, then the ministry will submit the draft to the Legislation Committee. Now, the Legislation Committee is a subcommittee of Cabinet, and it consists of ministers as well as representatives from the departments that I just mentioned, as well as our office. So at the Legislation Committee stage, the bill is read through line by line. Again, it's critically reviewed to ensure that it reflects the policy, and the policy itself is examined critically. Now, at that stage, Legislation Committee might make recommendations for changes. If that's the case, then our office will make the changes, send the draft back to the ministry. At that point, the ministry will then submit the draft to the cabinet for their approval. Cabinet would consider the draft and approve it for tabling in Parliament if they consider that it's appropriate.
And you say the ministry in terms of the ministry who is championing this policy?
Right. So, of course, we have government is broken up into several ministries. Each has portfolio responsibilities. So whichever ministry has that particular portfolio responsibility is the ministry that will take responsibility for the draft.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier that the instructions will be sent to the drafter, and the drafter will, provide assistance redeveloping the legislation. How many drafters does the OPC have?
Well, currently we have on our establishment, which is the allocation of posts that we have in government, posts for 16 drafters, but currently we have only 11 drafters on staff. Yes.
So we do have the specialized persons working within this, specialized field.
Right.
So we have to make sure that once the policy decisions and the developments come to the OPC, that they are clear, that they are concise, right? But tell us a little bit more why we think it needs to be clear and concise. How does that help the OPC in terms of drafting these legislations?
Well, we need to understand the policy in order to translate it into law, in order to write the necessary rules. So if the policy is not clear to us, then we will have questions. We perhaps might not be able to actually proceed to drafting until those questions are cleared up. Or if it's unclear, it will result in legislative provisions that are not clear. And then you will either have loopholes in the law or provisions that are not enforceable.
And we don't want loopholes in the law. We want a law that is enforceable and something that is easy enough to understand and clearly and accurately substantiates what the policy development or decisions are, right? So you mentioned earlier the difference, you mentioned the word bill and legislation.
Yes.
For our viewers who are listening and watching, could you explain to us what is the difference between a bill and a piece of legislation?
Well, you have various types of legislation. So you could have an act, which is referred to as primary legislation, or you could have regulations, which are rules that support the primary legislation, that support the working of an act. So different types of regulations could be orders, notices, or regulations. All of those fall within the rubric of regulations.
Okay, and a subsidiary legislation would fall under what you just explained, right?
Right. Subsidiary legislation are regulations.
Awesome.
And all of those support an act. Now, a bill is a draft for an act. It becomes an act when it's actually passed by Parliament and assented to by the Governor General.
And for those persons who don't know what ascension by the Governor General means, could you just inform them about what that process looks like or what that means in our context?
So the assent is part of the formal procedure for the passing of a law, and it's provided for in the Constitution. And of course, because Parliament consists of the Senate, House of Representatives, but also the Governor General as the Queen's representative.
Well, in this
head
case,
of state.
the King's representative.
King's representative, yes. Then, so after the law is passed off by both houses of Parliament, the House of Representatives and the Senate, then it then goes to the other arm of Parliament with the King's representative to sign off, signifying the completion of the legislative procedure.
So for our viewers, if you didn't get that, let me just rephrase. If the GG, which is the Governor General, did not assent or put his signature on it, it's not law, it's not enforceable, right? It's not effective. So make sure that you know and watch in the news to see if it is that this was no, enforceable by our Parliament and signed off by the GG.
Right, and our laws do provide for the assent to be published in the Gazette, which is the official publication of our laws.
So that if persons are interested in actually seeing if the GG gave his assent, they can find that.
Yes.
Right? All right, great. So CPC, as your role as Chief Parliamentary Counsel, as it pertains to getting consultation from the public in a joint select committee forum, has those suggestions helped the process? How has the OPC used those feedback from the public to inform the bill further?
Well, feedback from the public, whether it's from a professional group such as the bar associations or just from the layman, is always useful. It gives insight into the practical effect of legislation on individuals. And so we've found that amazingly helpful. But it's not normally up to OPC alone. Of course, the members of the committee will have to decide what feedback they're going to accept and make changes. But it has worked wonderful well, and it's a very important part of the consultation process.
So even with the Constitution Amendment Republic Bill, how has the suggestions from the public, how has that been insightful in terms of, refining or even reviewing the bill?
Right. So that, I think, is one instance where we've had feedback from a wide variety of the population. Yes, we had the professional groups, you had the learning institutions like the law school, and then you've had just average individuals writing in and really feeling enthused about participating and that they can make a difference in the legislative process. So
as you heard it from our CPC, you don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a politician, don't have to be a member of parliament to make your contribution within the legislative process, because when there is a joint select committee meeting, you can send in your feedback, your suggestions based on how the bill is drafted, and then it will be considered. So make sure that the next time you hear the call for consultation, for your voice to be heard and for your voice to be used as a critical process within the legislative process, that you participate, right? So CPC, next question. We know that the OPC, it advises on legal matters. Now, what does this involve?
Well, our advice is usually in support of our role as drafters, and so we would provide advice at a variety of stages. First, we are consulted when the matter is at the draft cabinet submission stage. We normally do send our comments on that, and that's aimed at making the proposed legislation practicable and ensuring that the policy ideas are clearly articulated, and also assessing what would be necessary to be implemented in legislation. And then when we receive drafting instructions, we also give feedback there, again interrogating the policy, ensuring that everything is clear and that what is proposed to be included in legislation actually reflects the policy. We also have to have a solid foundation in administrative and constitutional law, because that will inform the lawfulness of the provisions that are crafted. And so we have to look at our drafting instructions from that point of view and offer the necessary legal advice to ensure that what is being drafted is lawful.
All right, so on Lawfully Explained, we like to have a little game that we play. And for our viewers at home, you can play along with us. So this game is called Law or Nah. So I will ask you or give you a scenario, give you a situation, and you will tell me if this is actual law in the Jamaican context, right? Hope you guys are ready, so make sure you pay attention. So first one is, in Jamaica, it's illegal for civilians to wear camouflage clothing. Is that law or nah?
No, it's not illegal per se to wear camouflage, but it is illegal to don any attire that would impersonate the uniform of a police officer or a member of the defense force.
Okay, all right, so I hope you guys got that one correct. Now the second one is, you must get a permit from your member of parliament to own a motorbike.
No, that's a no. But of course, any driver of a motorbike should ensure that their vehicle is properly registered under the Road Traffic Act.
And that they also abide by the rules of the Road Traffic Act, right?
Yes.
And TPC, I'm going to push it a little further. Do you know, or could you just tell us when the Road Traffic Act was enforceable?
Well, the new act was passed in 2018.
2018. So, next one. You can be fined for using indecent language in public.
Yes.
So, law.
That's a law, yes.
Yes? And what is the fine, if you can tell me off the top of your head?
I don't know the fine off the top of my head.
But it's something that is enforceable in Jamaican context.
Yes, it is.
All right. Number 4. In Jamaica, someone can say, I plead the fifth. Law or not?
Well, there's no law against pleading the fifth, but of course that concept of pleading the fifth is something that's peculiar to the U.S. Constitution because it refers to the Fifth Amendment. But we do have similar provisions in our Constitution that protect the individual and give them the right to due process, including the right not to say anything that would incriminate them and the right to request an attorney.
So if somebody gets arrested, they can, remain silent and make sure that they contact an attorney to lobby on their behalf.
Yes.
Right? So thank you, CPC, for playing Law or Now. We do hope that you guys got the correct answers, and if you did, make sure you put those in the comments down below. Who knows, we may have a little prize for you, right? Great. So now that we've had our little game, we've had our little fun, we want persons to get any last bit of information. So you can look to the camera and you can let our viewers know anything that you think we may not have touched about the OPC and about the legislative drafting process. Go.
Well, I just want to take the opportunity to big up my team of drafters because every drafter is a lawyer, but not every lawyer is a drafter. It takes a special aptitude, and we really do have a special team of talented people.
Wonderful. I hope you guys understand that, What you said, every lawyer is a drafter, but not every drafter is a lawyer?
No. Every drafter
is a lawyer, but not every lawyer is a drafter. All right, no problem. That was Judith Grant, Chief Parliamentary Counsel, giving us a fascinating glimpse into the work of the Office of the Parliamentary Counsel. Now, from drafting bills that reflect government policy to supporting Parliament in making sure that these laws are clear, coherent, and enforceable, it's very clear that the OPC plays a key role in shaping the legal foundation of our society. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode and you see the law in a different light, be sure to like and share this video and make sure that you subscribe to our channel so that you never miss another episode. Oh, and don't forget to follow us on all socials at MLCAGOVJM. Until next time, I'm Nastasia McFarlane. Stay informed, stay engaged so that it can be lawfully explained.